Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be answering your assumptions about Christians. It's basically, I don't know if you guys know that trend that was kind of going around on YouTube where we would ask our viewers your assumptions about us and then we would film a video answering those assumptions. It's basically the same concept, except instead of answering assumptions about myself, I'm going to be answering your assumptions about Christians. And I actually saw this one other YouTuber do this same video, and she's actually the one who inspired me to do this video. So I'll link her video down below because it's definitely worth the watch. But anyway, so for those of you who are wondering why I didn't post a video on Friday, it's because this video that you're currently watching was meant to go up on Friday, but I didn't really want to rush and post it because I didn't feel like it was quite finished yet. And because I'm answering assumptions about Christians as a whole and not just about myself, I wanted to be very mindful and very careful with how I went about saying things. So I just really wanted to spend a little more time on this video, so I'm really thankful for all your really sweet responses and for all of you being really understanding as to why I didn't have a video on Friday. But that all being said, I am back and I'm still going to be posting like I normally do on Wednesdays and Fridays. The biggest reason I held off on posting this video on Friday is because I wanted to spend more time on it, and honestly, if I'm being honest with you guys, this is the fourth time I filmed this video, and it's not because my answers to these assumptions have changed, but it's because in the first few times that I filmed this video, I kind of shied away from answering certain assumptions just because I didn't want anyone to feel like they were getting attacked, and I didn't want to cause anyone to get offended, to be honest. But the more I thought about it and the more I refilmed, I really just came to the realization that we live in a world where people get offended for anything. People don't know how to hear things even if they don't agree or disagree with you. So I think that in itself is already so messed up. Like, I know regardless of what I say in this video, someone's probably going to get offended, and that's not my intention with this video, but I can't affect the way someone feels. And also, the more I thought about it too, I don't want to be that Christian because there's already so many Christians who fall under this category. I don't want to be that Christian who shies away from answering certain things or talking about certain topics just because she's afraid someone's going to get hurt or someone's going to get offended. Again, none of that's my intention, but I don't think that that's a valid reason as to why I should shy away from addressing certain things. I promise this video is not as serious as I may make it come off to seem. Obviously we're hitting serious topics just because, again, I'm talking about Christians as a whole and not just myself. But I just want all of you guys to know that regardless of whether you agree or disagree with me, I still love you guys and I still want to connect with you. I still want my channel to be a place where you guys can feel free to be yourself. Just know that my heart behind this video was honestly just out of curiosity to know what assumptions you guys had and to kind of just share my take and my perspective when it comes to these assumptions. So we can still live in a world where people can love on each other even if we don't agree with everything. So that being said, like I said, I'm going to be answering your assumptions about Christians. I asked you guys on Instagram and I got quite a few responses, so let's get started. The first assumption that you guys had about Christians was that we're obsessed with going to church. I'm not going to agree or deny this assumption. The reason I say that is because I know oftentimes a lot of Christians who are obsessed with going to church, if that's what you want to call it, simply because they don't know what it's like to have a relationship with God or what it's like to grow in faith without going to a church. And so I think that if someone falls under this category where they only go to church because they don't know a God outside of it, then that's an issue. However, if you're growing in your relationship with God and you want to grow in your faith, it's very natural to have that desire to want to go to church often. So honestly, I think when it comes to this assumption, I think it's all about finding a balance for what works for you and what God's calling you to do for that season. The other thing I wanted to say too was, depending on the season that you are in your life, it's going to look very different how often you go to church. And to kind of provide you an example, there's this couple whose podcast I listen to, and I mentioned them in my previous video. But basically, they're in a season of raising 2 toddlers and a newborn baby. So obviously the amount of time that they spend leaving the house and going to church is going to look so different from someone who's single. And the reason I really wanted to like provide this example and kind of address this assumption was because I feel like so oftentimes so many people get bashed or get told that they're not godly or that they don't have a faith just because they're not devoting as much time to a church as someone else is. Basically, the biggest takeaway from this that I want you guys to take is like, you don't need to be going to church as often as you may think to have a faith, but also don't put yourself in a position where you think that your faith is so strong that you don't even go to church. So that's my take on that assumption. I hope that that kind of answers that. Again, like I said in the beginning of this video, I didn't think that I was going to have to go so into depth with each assumption, and I'm not going to, but I'm going to try to. So this video might get a little lengthy, but yeah, I hope that you guys are just interested in hearing what I have to say. So with that being said, the second assumption that you guys had was that Christians can't have alcohol. This one, I think, honestly varies from Christian to Christian depending on where your convictions lie. And the reason I say this is because, okay, I think that regardless of where your convictions lie, I don't think it's okay to get drunk. And I don't think it's okay to have alcohol if you're trying to suppress a certain emotion or a certain memory, or if you want to feel a certain way. I think that's when you shouldn't be having alcohol, but having alcohol in itself, I don't think is a bad thing. Like, me personally, I'm not 21, but when I turn 21, my friends and I really want to have like a wine and paint night. So see, I think things like that and environments like that are totally okay to be around, and like, I'm not completely opposed to having alcohol. But again, I want you guys to be mindful of like why it is that you're choosing to partake in those activities. Yeah, so that one was pretty fast. That was good. The third assumption that some of you guys had about Christians was that Christians aren't friends with non-Christians. This is going to vary from Christian to Christian, obviously, because I don't know where you are with that. But for me personally, I have both Christian and non-Christian friends. And I want to start off by saying that, like, regardless of whether or not you're a Christian, you really need to be mindful of who you hang out with, because in so many ways, who you hang out with will affect who you become. So as a Christian, you want to have those people who are like-minded and who believe in you and who will grow you and who will hold you accountable. And then you also want to be mindful and have wisdom with how you go about hanging out with people and being in certain environments, just because the last thing you want is to hang out with someone or be in an environment that you know is going to cause you to sin or cause you to fall into temptation. So there's wisdom when it comes to that. But the other thing too is I find so many like Christians who will choose to be friends with only Christians, and they'll shy away from being friends with non-Christians just because they don't like the idea of being challenged in their faith. They don't like the idea of being questioned, and they feel like if they hang out with a non-Christian, they're all of a sudden doing something wrong. I don't know how people intend to reach others if they're not taking the time to get to know them, if they're not taking the time to be their friend. And so, like, if we really want to be able to be that group of people who shows Christ to others who don't know who Christ is, like, you start that by being their friend. I have friends who are Christian and friends who are non-Christian, and to be honest, oftentimes I've learned a lot more about who God is and what He's called me to do through my non-Christian friends. And another thing is also, like, yes, my Christian friends hold me accountable and I love them to death and, like, whatever, they're great people. But at the end of the day, also, the fact that I have non-Christian friends allows me the opportunity to see different perspectives. Not to say that they're changing my mind, but it allows me the opportunity to see these perspectives and really understand where they're coming from, and also to understand why it is that I believe what I believe. So it's not like someone else is influencing what I believe, but it allows me the opportunity to, like, you know, set these standards for myself. I feel like that was kind of confusing, so if you guys need clarification on this one, let me know. But biggest takeaway again is it's okay to be friends with non-Christians. They're just as great as people as Christian friends. Again, be mindful though, because you don't want to be in a place that's going to cause you to stumble, but it's okay. Okay, on to the next one. The next assumption that some of you guys had about Christians was that Christians hate homosexuals. If I'm being honest, I wasn't surprised to see this assumption because I know that there's still so many Christians out there who think it's okay to be judgmental and hateful, and they think that it's their place to tell someone that they're going to go to hell or that God doesn't love them. To answer this assumption, I'm going to do my best to express myself and hopefully not be taken out of context. But basically, the reason I wanted to answer this assumption was because I don't want you guys to think that that's what Christ is calling a Christian to look like. As Christians, we're called to be loving and to call someone out in love. And there's a fine line between loving someone and calling them out in love and being judgmental. And I think that as Christians, we've failed miserably to figure out where that line lies, because so many of us, instead of falling under the category of being loving, we're falling under the category of being judgmental. So that in itself is honestly something that I think needs to be addressed and fixed among Christians before we even think we have the right to address something like homosexuality. But on that note, the other thing too that I've found among a lot of Christians and even among churches is that we, for some reason, they think that they have to place homosexuality above every other sin. When in reality, regardless of what the sin is, it's still equally wrong before God's eyes. So whether someone struggles with homosexuality or if someone struggles with pornography or with gluttony, whatever the sin is, it's still wrong and it's still something that God's not okay with. So I think we've also failed miserably in figuring out how to address these topics because, for one, we either shy away from addressing them to begin with, or we think that we have to attack and highlight a certain sin when there's still so many other sins out there. So with all that being said, to address the assumption, no, Christians should not hate homosexuals. And it's not just homosexuals that is the issue. As Christians, we shouldn't hate anyone, regardless of what you believe, what you think, where you stand on things. Regardless of where you are in life, it is not our place to hate on you. It is not our place to judge you. It is not our place to tell you how God feels about you. We can call you out in love and we can be there for you and we can tell you what we believe. There's obviously a good way to do that, but we're doing a terrible job of doing it. But I just really wanted to address this assumption because I don't want you guys to have this picture that Christians are hateful and judgmental. I don't blame you if that's the picture that you have, because I know that there's a lot of Christians who have painted that picture for us. But I just want you to know that as a Christian, Christ is calling us to be loving and to be that light to people regardless of what they believe and where they stand. So I'm really sorry because I know so many Christians have failed to paint the picture of who Christ has called us to be, and we're telling you things that do not align with who God is or what his character is. So I just want you guys to know that God doesn't hate homosexuals, and it's not our place to tell you whether or not you're going to go to hell. It's not our place to tell you that he hates you, that you're an abomination. All these things are so messed up, and it's not our place to say these things. We can call you out in love and tell you what Scripture says and what we believe God believes, but again, like I said, there's that fine line that we still haven't seemed to figure out of loving and being judgmental. So I hope that kind of answers that assumption. And I just want you guys all to be respectful and to be mindful of where certain people may stand on these things. So please don't be hateful or feel attacked in any way, or don't feel the need to attack or be hateful towards anyone else. I just really want you guys to know that God loves you, whether you're homosexual, whether you're struggling with lust, or if you're struggling with gluttony, or if you have anxiety or depression or wherever you fall in this category, or if you don't even believe in God, like whatever it is, I want you guys to know that God still loves you, he still sees you, and he still wants a relationship with you. That's honestly the biggest takeaway as to why I wanted to address this assumption. If you guys have any questions or want anything clarified, let me know down below. But that's basically it for this assumption. With that being said, the next assumption that you guys had was that Christians have sex before marriage. To be honest, this one kind of threw me off because I thought that your assumption was going to be that we save ourselves till marriage, but the fact that the assumption was that we don't kind of just speaks for where a lot of Christians are right now. So, to kind of share what I think and what I think God thinks in regards to this assumption is, God created sex, and sex was a gift that he gave to be shared among a husband and a wife, something that's meant to be done in a covenant, in marriage, before God, and it's an act of worship for God, okay? So he didn't intend for it to be done outside of your marriage. It's meant to be something that you share with your spouse and not outside of that. And so I know that there's Christians out there who haven't saved themselves to marriage, and then there's those who are saving themselves to marriage. What I want to say with that is, like, if you've already had sex and you're not married yet, but you know that that's something that, you know, you shouldn't have done, and you want to be cleansed from it, and you want to be made pure, like, by all means, that's something that God can still do. He can still make you pure. He can still cleanse you. He can forgive you, and he can still make you pure before your spouse's eyes. So, like, God doesn't hate you. He can still forgive you. Like, it's not too late. If you're at a point where, you know, you're waiting until you get married, or if you want to wait until you get married now, like, that's still something that's totally doable. It's totally worth it. And, yeah, so I hope that answered that assumption. Basically, don't have sex if you're not married. And if you are, stop doing it. And, yeah. Okay, next assumption. This next assumption that some of you guys had was that Christians aren't okay with abortion. This one's going to be kind of hard to address because, for one, I know it's going to be controversial, but I know it's going to be controversial even among Christians. Because I know that there's Christians who are pro-life, Christians who are pro-choice, and then Christians who, like, just are okay with abortion overall. So to share my take on this, I think that if you call yourself a Christian, you should not be okay with abortion, and you should not be okay with pro-choice. You should not be okay with anything in regards to abortion. I want you guys, again, to be respectful of where other people may be coming from, and to not hate on anyone, and to not think that you're feeling attacked in any way. I wanted to address this because not a lot of people talk about it, whether you're a Christian or not. So many people choose to shy away from it because they don't like to hit these topics. And I'm not doing this to cause, like, controversy or anything like that. It's just because it was an assumption that you guys had, and I really wanted to share where I firmly believe Christians should stand. And the other thing, too, is even before I was a Christian, I still had a really hard time wrapping my mind around the idea of being okay with abortion. So I feel like even more so, if you take it further than religion, I think that really, honestly, it's like a humanity, I think that's the term, like a humanity issue. I think regardless of, like, where you lie in your beliefs in regards to your religion, I think that this goes so much further than that, and I think that we're not in a place where we should be given the right to decide what happens to another human life. I think that life happens the moment conception happens. So with that being said, that's kind of my take on that assumption. The last thing I want to address in regards to this assumption is that whether you agree or disagree with me, or whether you're a Christian or not, regardless of where you stand on this assumption or any of the assumptions that I've mentioned in this video, like, I want you to know that you still deserve to be respected, you still deserve to be heard, and you still deserve to be loved. Like I said in the beginning of this video, we live in a world where people will get so easily offended, and we don't know how to handle disagreements. We don't know how to handle criticism. Like, humanity needs some help, guys. But I just wanted really to address this. You're worth being heard, you're worth being loved, you're worth being respected, regardless of where you stand on anything. Whatever it looks like, I want you guys to always feel comfortable coming to my channel and feeling like you can still be yourself, like you're still loved, you're still accepted. And yeah, I think that's basically it for that assumption. So let's get on to the next one. The last assumption I'm going to be addressing in this video is the assumption that Christians aren't open to learning about new religions. I think that it's going to vary from Christian to Christian again, like I said, but I think that as a Christian, we shouldn't be so closed off and so closed-minded that we don't take the time to learn about what other people believe in. I think even more so if we intend to be that people who reaches out to others and who wants to shed a light on them, I think that the least we can do is really understand where they're coming from and kind of gain perspective of why they believe what they believe. At the end of the day, you don't have to agree with all religions, but there's nothing wrong with learning about them. And they're honestly pretty interesting to learn about to begin with. And I even had this one time a speaker come into our missionary school to talk about how in some ways, learning about other religions allows you the opportunity to see different perspectives of who God is. It's not to say that all religions are correct and that you should agree with all religions, but for example, like there's some religions where some people are so devoted to like learning word for word their Bible or learning word for word like whatever type of like scripture that they read, or they're super devoted and they go before their God with so much reverence. So it's just like things like that you can learn from, where like as a Christian you don't have to agree with it, but like you can learn from them and be like, okay, wow, like, you know, maybe I should be spending a little more time in the Word, or maybe I should approach God with a little more reverence, or whatever the case may be. I feel like in so many ways, there's still so much we can learn about different religions. So you don't have to agree with them, but like, regardless of where you stand, be open-minded and take the time to learn about them. Alright guys, so that's basically it for the Christian assumptions. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I did not get to all of them because I really wanted to do my best to try and go in depth with the ones that I did answer. But if again you need clarification or have any questions in regards to any of the assumptions that I answered, please let me know down below, because I don't want anyone to come out of this video confused or feel a certain way because they didn't understand what I said. Yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed getting to hear a little bit more about what your assumptions were and kind of my take on those assumptions. Like I said throughout this whole video, I feel like I can't stress it enough. Please don't feel like you're not welcome in my channel if you don't agree with me. Please don't feel like I'm trying to make you guys believe what I believe, or I don't want you to feel attacked in any way. We're all grown people. We can all be respectful. We don't have to agree to love each other. We don't have to agree to be respectful. We're mindful of one another. So that's basically my take on these assumptions. Like I said, I'm trying to be very careful and very mindful because I'm talking about a lot of Christians and not just myself. So I also just ask for a lot of grace when it comes to you guys watching this video. But that's basically it. I'll be posting a video on Friday, so I'm back to my normal schedule, like I said, Wednesday and Friday. And yeah, I thank you guys so much for submitting your assumptions and for trusting me with reading them and getting the chance to answer them. And I hope that you guys have a great couple days before I see you guys again. I'm excited. So I love you guys, and yeah, see you later.